All right, let's get started. So we begin today's session. Welcome all of you to the Mobile Testing Best Practices webinar series. Let's get, to our agenda for today. Before we get and deep dive into the chapter 2 of the session today, let's recap on what was basically covered on October 26th, which is the topic of simplifying mobile testing strategy for the future. Our guest speaker, Ayan Deb Burman, who is an engineering manager at EV Comtech, spoke about how they have utilized BrowserStack to solve for a lot of their use cases around user journey mapping and core web vitals monitoring as a part of the session, and basically also helped us understand a deep dive view of the mobile testing strategy that they have covered for their use cases. In today's session, which is the chapter 2, we are going to deep dive on navigating the mobile first landscape as a part of this mobile testing masterclass. And let me get started with introducing the speakers for today. My name is Samiran Saha. I'm a customer engineering manager at BrowserStack, and basically with 12 plus years of experience in my role today, I talk to a lot of customers across industries and regions to help understand what are their goals and challenges, so that basically we can help solve the use cases and understand how we can have the best collaboration together in terms of what we deliver as the BrowserStack product and platform. I also am very glad to have our primary speaker for today, who is Nagmani. Nagmani is the Director of Quality Engineering at Swivel, an SWBC company. And with 18 plus years of overall experience, he has delivered a number of key automation projects with the highest quality standards while also ensuring minimal cost. So, glad to have you, Nagmani, over here with me.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Thank you, Nagmani. We'll get started with the housekeeping items. A very quick thing about how the session will be running today. It'll be for 60 minutes and all participants will be muted to enable speakers to speak without any interruptions. There will be a Zoom Q&A window to answer all of your questions in real time. We have a team set up for that. So definitely during the session, please feel free to ask your questions on the Zoom Q&A window. We'll also have a dedicated Q&A with the speakers at the end of the session, with reserving approximately 15 minutes for that. Needless to say, this session is being recorded and all the recordings will be available to the attendees at the end of the session. Okay, so before I hand it over to Nagmani, I'll just give a quick overview of the session agenda. We're going to speak about how mobile testing and the device fragmentation causes a lot of hurdles for organizations across, and how the mobile testing strategy can be best created and fitted to ensure that organizations are able to scale their mobile testing test maturity model. And then we'll also take a quick look at the Swivel success story with a case study and how BrowserStack has helped them deliver a seamless experience for the complex use cases in the finance and the payment sector. With that, I'll hand it over to you, Nagmani, and you can share your screen.
Sure. Can you all see my screen? Can you all see my screen? Hello, am I audible?
Yes, Nagmani, that's right. You can get started.
Okay, sure. Thank you. And thank you, Samaran. And hello, everyone. I'm Nagmani, and I'm Director of Quality Engineering at Swivel. Swivel is a fintech company based out in Texas. Like I'll talk more about Swivel when the time of case study comes. But here, as you can see on agenda, I'm going to talk about on mobile testing. Like, why do we want to have a strategy on mobile testing? Why company takes mobile testing very seriously? I'll present some facts and figure around that, and then I will talk about the maturity model, which is a kind of like a framework which help company to understand where they stand when they talk about mobile testing. And then I'll I'll give an example of highest maturity, like how, like what company should be expecting when they say like they are working at highest maturity level. And in the last, I will present one case study for Swivel that will show like how we are doing mobile testing and how we have leveraged BrowserStack for that. And after that, I'll hand over to Samran for the real time demo. Exciting stuff. Okay, so let's talk about why mobile testing. We all know like mobile, we all are familiar with mobile. Everybody has mobile. Mobile is everywhere now, and now everyone is using it. And data shows that around the world we have plus billion 5 billion plus mobile handsets, and more and more users going on mobile and doing their business compared to desktop. And when it comes to fintech, it's almost 60% of the user using mobile for their day-to-day business basically. And it's very interesting actually. Like most of the time when we talk about mobile, we talk about apps, but it's not always apps. We see like mobile, like people even using mobile browser equally to conduct their day-to-day business, and you will see that in my upcoming slides. So what are the different use cases when we specifically when we talk when we consider like banking and financial industry? What are the top use cases or top businesses that they are like users are conducting on mobile? So this is the survey. This data is as per the survey. You can see like published in 2015 by Consumer and Mobile Financial Services. Uh, and I won't go and read everything over here, but if you see in detail, you find out that users are doing all sort of transactions on mobile, whether they want to check their account balance or they want to deposit the check electronically, which earlier they used to go to bank, or they want to make a payment, their bill payments, or they want to scan a QR code to make payments. So all sort of crazy stuffs everybody is nowadays are doing on the mobile. One interesting thing you will see over here, like in 2015 when this survey was published, as per the survey it say like 71% of mobile user has downloaded the mobile banking app, while 94% of the users have checked their account balance on mobile. That means whatever I said in my previous slides, right? Users are not only using the app, they are using all the avenue that mobile is offering, whether it's a browser, camera, anything, right? To what wherever they can do the business, the users are finding mobile handy to conduct their day-to-day business. And that's why companies are very serious when they talk about mobile testing, because they want to reach to a larger base, and they want to grow their business. You can see like there was another survey in like which was published by FDIC. As per that, it say like in 2015, 9.5% Americans have accessed their bank account on mobile, but this number has increased to 43.5% in 2021. So this is huge. So this is huge market, and that's why company is very serious. However, it's not easy. When we talk about mobile testing, it's not easy. It comes with different challenges. So what are the different challenges we have? Let's talk about that. uh, so as I mentioned earlier, right, like mobile testing is not only kind of like a UI and API, like we mostly do in our desktop testing. When we talk about mobile testing, we talk about different complexities, like users are using their camera to scan their QR code, or they are getting a text message, and the text message will have some kind of information to conduct the business, maybe an URL to launch their application, or like transaction happening only through the text message nowadays. uh, we have digital wallets. People are now people are not carrying card nowadays. Instead of they are using Apple Pay and Google Pay and going and doing the shopping, right? So different challenges also, like in desktop, where generally our test cases starts with logging to websites. In mobile it happens differently, where users are using their biometric to authenticate themselves. So it's complex, right? It complex when specifically when it comes to testing, and also when it comes for automation. It's not easy to do that. And this complexity increase when somebody says that, okay, yeah, you have to test all these things on different OS or different screen size or screen resolution. As we all know, that we are getting new and new mobile handset every month, basically. And also apps are going global. We don't know from where the users are coming from. Like most of the time, user may not have a proper bandwidth. Some might be using 2G bandwidth, some might be using 3G bandwidth. So different complexity. So we need to make sure that to have a good mobile testing, we need to make sure that mobile app is not working, not just working functionally, but it is also working from the non-functional perspective. That means we should take care of the load testing. Like when we say like load testing, like how mobile is working when it comes to like the user profile. That some users may be having different hundreds and apps running in background, and then they will try to launch the banking app, or they will be trying to uh, like launch the mobile app or a banking app in a very low bandwidth. So we need to make sure that the performance of the app is tested well before it goes to production. We should also make sure the accessibility testing, because it should be for everyone, not just for some certain individual. And also security testing is very, very critical, because now every days we see some kind of like a data breach and other stuffs and all. So it's very, very critical. So when we talk about like a mobile testing maturity, it's a journey, right? It's a journey, and company requires a comprehensive strategy to achieve the highest maturity. And I'll talk about what is this strategy is actually. First, so before talking about strategy, let's talk about like like what is the mobile maturity, right? When how can a company say that, okay, I'm having mobile app, and I'm conducting my testing business with highest maturity? Well, this is a framework to just to give an insight whether they are doing on the highest maturity model, or they are somewhere in middle, right? So if you look deep in this slide, uh, here I have divided the mobile maturity in four parts. The first part is basic, second one intermediate, mature, and highly mature. So when you talk about like basic mobile testing, that means company has a mobile app, and they have handed some physical handset to their QA engineers, and the QA engineers are going and downloading those app like the way end user will be doing, and they will be trying to test the app functionally on limited handset, whatever they have, or whatever the company could give to them. And they'll say, okay, yeah, it's working or not working. Obviously this is not enough, because we have seen our challenges section that there are so many there are so many mobile handsets, we have so many versions, so many OS, and most often when we have this kind of strategy, we see production issues coming out, uh, which will be mostly because we have not tested properly on all the devices or all the operating system. And that's where and you know, like company cannot go and buy all the devices every time, and that's why they try to go and try to seek some kind of like a cloud option. And that's where the intermediate maturity model comes. They With the intermediate maturity model, they try to go and get devices on the cloud. They'll try to make sure that they test on almost all the critical or key devices that they might be aware of, and with limited automation, right? We still don't know like the devices that we are testing in this maturity model is enough or not, because we may not have that kind of insights, right? So once we have this, once we achieve this, then company want to move further to a mature model, where they'll say, okay, now since we have this cloud, and also we are having some exposure on automation, let's try to make sure that we become some efficient by bringing more automation, and automate all of our regression and execute every time, so that we can have a rapid release, ensuring that we are testing almost whatever the critical devices we know at that point of time, right? And that's what I say, like a generic device strategy on the cloud, so we don't see any surprises in production. So that's a kind of like a mature, and most of the companies are playing around in playing in this space. But when it comes to highly mature, that means a company should have a mobile test strategy, a proper test strategy, and I will talk about what is mobile proper test strategy is. And when mobile test strategy, and based on that test strategy, they'll try to conduct their business. So what's the mobile test strategy, right? And how what a uh, highly mature practice look like, right? So mobile test strategy is like a company know exactly like from where their users are coming from, right? What is their web traffic versus mobile traffic, right? What kind of user base they have when it comes to like devices or OS, what kind of user profiles they have, like in terms of age, location, what kind of bandwidth they are using, um, all those kind of stuffs, right? So based on that, they create a detailed mobile test strategy. This is generally a one-time effort where you go and collect all your data and create your mobile test strategy. However, we need to revisit this often, actually. And so make sure that it does not go outdated, and it always stay current. Once we have this uh, mobile test strategy created, then all other phases comes, right? Like development, QA, UAT. They ensures that they conduct their testing based on the strategy that we have defined, right? So development will make sure that they test their application well in advance during unit testing. They ensure that look and feel of the pages that they are developing is good enough. They are not breaking any existing things, right? They can use simulators, but they should also use some real devices to make sure that they are testing some hardware specific features, right? They need to make sure that all the API call that pages are making, those are working fine. There's no break, there is no break in that. So that way, when QA receives the build, QA can easily run their automation without getting any surprises, right? Also, they need to ensure that while app is working functionally, they share like app is also working non-function, like it is also accessible for everyone, from the page perspective, from the component perspective, and more importantly, like they are not breaking anything what is there in the production. So unit testing becomes very critical in highly mature practice. Then it comes to QA phase, uh, and it's become very like QA become very robust over here, because they are not only they are not only focusing that they are not only focusing on like functional test. Instead, they are focused on that they focus on everything. They make sure that all the devices get tested, all the OS get tested as per our strategy document. uh, Regression tests are all regression tests are getting passed. Not just the functional testing but the non-functional testing, right? Like with the real-time user setups. Like if some user base will have a low bandwidth, that means we need to have our regression running on the low bandwidth setups, and to ensure that these are working fine. If we require to have a accessibility testing, then we need to make sure that we need to have those usability and accessibility testing. We need to make sure that our network latency is not killing our app performance. All those kind of stuff, non-functional stuffs, QA engineers will take care uh, in QA phase, actually. And then it comes to UAT phase, where UAT engineers will go and just make sure that they check the high level business functionality to ensure everything is working fine. In the highly mature practice, automation is very key, because we cannot have these many things uh, running always manually, because that will be too much of effort and it won't be efficient. So that's why the automation is very critical, right? And like we need to have a good technical team, as well as good tool and strategy to develop our automation well in advance, so we can utilize them, those are automation in all the phases, whether it's like in development, QA, or UAT, to ensure we stay highly effective, right? So that comes with mobile maturity, like a highly mature practice for in terms of mobile testing. I'll jump on my Swivel story, right? As I said, like Swivel is a fintech company. We mostly process financial transactions, like which is like accepting payments for financial institution in across United States. We have so many channels. However, I want, for the sake of mobile testing, I want to focus on our online channels. Like, so we process millions of transactions every month. When it comes to our online transaction, we see like most of our volume are coming from mobile devices. We see like 71%, at least almost 71% of our traffic comes from mobile devices. In that, 75% of the traffic comes from iOS devices. So I know my user base, what kind of devices they are using, what kind of situation, where they are located, all those kind of stuff. Basically, we know, and then we are conducting, we are creating our mobile strategy accordingly. So with this data, with this data, when I look back and see my BrowserStack journey, we see before 2021, we were mostly having a manual license with BrowserStacks. And then we got matured in automation in 2022. That's where we have upgraded ourselves to automation license. And then we got for we our maturity, we got more matured, and then now we have an enterprise license with BrowserStack, where we are running our automation every time in automated way, mostly in the pipeline, right? And because of that, we are, we are able to test uh, test 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 every time on the later devices or OS without any delay. Uh, when I compare it with my manual test execution that we were doing like 2 years back, we see like every time when we run our automation, we are saving at least 4 to 5 hours just on cross browser and cross devices testing, which is huge because we are running our automation on daily basis in the pipeline. So this 4 to 5 hours are very critical. Like when it comes for making our release rapid, we are able to go we are able to increase our production releases. Also, along with our functional testing, we are making sure that we are doing all the non-functional testing. Like we are focusing on accessibility testing. We are ensuring that our apps are accessible to everyone on not just on the website but also on the mobile. We are exploring Percy. I hope most of you know Percy. Percy is like a visual testing tool. It's an AI enabled tool. So we are exploring that. So going forward, we will be making sure like we compare some changes, on the app dynamically when the app is getting developed or when our application is getting developed. So we don't wait longer, to validate if anything is broken because of any change. So that's our civil case study. I'll hand over to Samran again to show you some demo.
All right. So thank you so much, Nagmani, for giving an insight about the Swivel success story, as well as, how customers can go ahead and, climb up the testing maturity model. I'll, at this point in time, speak about the BrowserStack Dual Device Cloud, followed by a live demo of certain device features. I hope all of you are very excited to see the demo as well. So I'll share my screen right now. Nagmani, can I share my screen?
You can share a screen. I have.
It shows me that you are sharing at this point in time. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay.
All right. I hope my screen is visible to you. Please reply in the chat box in case there's any issue, but I'll get started with the BrowserStack Real Device Cloud. So as a part of the BrowserStack Real Device Cloud, we provide more than 20,000 devices, right, which are housed in the 19 global data centers to ensure that your global teams are able to access the device with minimal latency, right? Based on the use cases that we have seen from customers, we have added 30 plus native device features, and these are very, very core features around the settings, the sensors of the device, and advanced features, right? That some of them I'm going to speak about during the demo as well, right? I'm very happy to talk about the fact that we have made day zero launches of certain flagship devices. This includes iPhone latest device on iOS 15. I think, yeah. And then we also have the Google Pixel device with the latest Android version as well. My bad, it was iOS 17 that we launched. So basically, with the BrowserStack dual device cloud, we are able to, provide customers with the latest and the greatest device, and all the teams are able to test with, their functional requirements for both manual as well as automation testing. And we are also certified as a cloud, with respect to all the compliance certifications, like you talk about GDPR, SOC 2 Type 2, all of that is already there with the BrowserStack Dual Device Cloud. When we have spoken to a lot of developers and QAs across the community, we have gathered a lot of the use cases that are relevant for them. And these are the top 6 use cases that came in during that particular study. We have the media injection and audio streaming. That's extremely important in the BFSI, travel, media, and pharma industry. Payments and security workflows, definitely for BFSI customers, including SIM testing, right? It's very important for a lot of those businesses, and the features and the capabilities that usually come in are spoken about in the middle section, wherein we have the biometric authentication, the device passcode, Apple Pay, Google Pay, right? OTP scenarios coming in as some of the important use cases that they would like to cover as a part of the testing use case, right? Accessibility forms a very important aspect as well, with features like device shake, multi-finger gestures, assistive touch, and dark mode coming up as a requirement, and as features that users regularly use. Talking about location and device settings, again, a lot of consumer apps which are providing real-time location access to users would definitely have that as a part of their testing use cases. There are also a lot of advanced features which are far more from a functional testing point of view, especially when you want to test a particular device with low battery or poor network, right? You want to simulate an offline mode and how your app reacts in that particular offline mode. So all of that is possible, to test using the BrowserStack Real Device Cloud. And these are also very, very prominent among the different businesses, as you can see on the right. So at this point in time, I'll move ahead with the live demo. And in this demo, I'm going to speak about 3 prominent use cases. These use cases are available for both manual testing as well as automation testing. And I'll just talk to you about, the relevance of some of these use cases, right? A biometric authentication, I think it's a very given, right? When you want to authenticate a user to provide access to your app, a lot of, apps these days would have the biometric authentication also enabled, which would possibly include a fingerprint or a Face ID. Along with that, an image injection use case could be very useful when, let's say, in a banking and finance industry, or maybe across industries, you have some form of document scanning that the app does, right? These documents could also be, used to validate, authenticate, and authorize a user to certain settings within the app based on, the appropriate documents being submitted, by the user. And of course, payment testing, there are these different aspects around Apple Pay, Google Pay, in-app purchases that you'd like to test to ensure that your user transactions are working seamlessly in a real-world environment. So with that, I'll basically, move ahead with my demo for today. And let me actually share my demo flow. Okay. So at this point in time, I actually have opened the Apple Pay demo on my Safari browser on the iPhone 14 iOS 16 device, and I'm on applepaydemo.apple.com on BrowserStack Live for web browser testing. So when I basically start the session, there are a lot of housekeeping items that are done to ensure that this device is even ready for getting the Apple Pay functionality accessible. And this basically includes, let's say, setting the device passcode, ensuring that there is a card that is added onto the wallet, right, in the wallet app, and eventually ensuring that Apple Pay is enabled. BrowserStack does all of that for you when you are basically starting the session. And let's say I am currently on the Apple Pay demo. I would like to make an Apple Pay transaction. So all I'd have to do is, ensure that I have the valid card. If I want to add a new card, I could also do that by adding a payment method. For the sample demo, I'll just proceed with the transaction out here. We can see that there's a demo transaction or a sample transaction that is happening. I will use the assistive touch and the Apple Pay menu item out here from the assistive touch, right? If I basically go ahead and press confirm and pay, the Apple Pay transaction will be processed. It's asking me for the device passcode, which by default is 123456 on any of the BrowserStack devices. That's what BrowserStack sets for you. And as you can see, with that sound also coming up, right, the Apple Pay transaction is successful. And with this demo transaction, all the details that the API will send to the user's app has been mentioned out here. Of course, your development team would basically process all of this JSON data to ensure that they are basically implementing the flow with respect to whether the Apple Pay transaction was successful or not. From a demo standpoint, at this point in time, on this real iPhone 14 device, I was able to basically perform Apple Pay on my Safari web browser. I hope this was very insightful. Of course, if you have questions, you could definitely put it on the Q&A box. With that, I'll at this point move on to the next demo, which is on biometric, as well as image injection. So for that, again, I'll go through the manual testing, product that we have, AppLive, again, mentioning that all of these functionalities are very well accessible via automation as well. So for accessing the biometric functionality, I'll use a sample biometric app. There is basically a settings icon out here. What I'd need to do and ensure is that the biometric authentication functionality is enabled, right? And if you have other functionality as a part of your app testing workflow, you can always go ahead and add them as well as enabled, right? What this does is that if your app has a touch ID or a face recognition, enabled, it'll allow you to perform those kind of use cases on the device. So let's get started with starting a session, let's say on one of the latest Google Pixel devices. So at this point in time, while I'm speaking to you, a real device from the nearest data center to me is getting loaded, and it's a pristine device, that will be loaded. And at this point in time, on the right-hand side, you're seeing that the device is getting started. The biometric authentication feature is getting enabled. It's already enabled. And I have, again, a sample app from the Android Google, sample apps, so that I'm basically showcasing at this point in time. So in general, a biometric login is in addition to a lot of, in a particular app, you could possibly have the username password login, but what we are interested out here is the biometric login. So I'll use the biometric, and as a part of this app's workflow, the username password is still required to authorize biometric for the first time. So basically, I'll just go ahead and type in my username password for this particular app, and and the first time it asks for authorization. Again, this workflow could be different as per your app's developer settings. So what this says is, what do I want to do at this point in time in terms of the biometric authentication? So when the user actually uses a fingerprint or the face ID, it's basically two types of scenarios, right? Either it's a biometric success or a biometric fail. At this point in time, I'm going to say that there's a biometric success. So I'll press on pass. And while the upcoming login or the post login screen, like the home screen of the app, is not developed as a part of this particular sample app, what this says is that the app login is actually successful. And of course, the build application state post login, which is the home screen, is not yet developed. That's why it shows that as a to-do item, right? Let's say when I go ahead and use biometrics again, but this time I would want to ensure that the fingerprint or the face ID is not correct or appropriate. So I'll go ahead and fail the biometric workflow. So as you can see, there's a different message out here which says that unsuccessful login attempt because the user fingerprint or the face ID biometric did not match. These are custom messages that have been added as a part of the sample app. But again, as a part of your own app, the developers would be configuring the workflow, right, in accordance to the business requirements. I hope this was really, useful for all of you to understand how biometric can be enabled or disabled, and utilized as a part of your app testing workflows. With that, I'll move on to my, last demo for today, which is basically on camera injection, and we'll see some of those use cases that could be really useful for camera injection. Let's say in this particular case, I again have the camera injection functionality enabled, and this will basically allow you to do any form of image capture. Again, if you have some things like a QR code or a barcode scanning that you'd like to get enabled via the camera, all of those use cases are also supported. So just mentioning on that particular aspect. And in this particular case, let's say I'm using a Samsung device, one of the latest devices out here. And again, this is a brand new session with the session getting started and the device getting booted from the nearest data center. And let's wait for a few seconds for the device to get loaded. All right, the device has gotten loaded, and currently the image injection functionality will be enabled on the device. And the app will be loaded. So basically, this is again a very basic app from a demo perspective. It asks whether this app can be used to take pictures and record video, which we will say yes to. And this is basically the app opening the camera state, right? And it's saying that the camera state is open right now. What I want to do is ensure that there is a particular image or a document that is basically getting scanned by the camera, so that the app's workflow could ensure that that document is uploaded on the backend server and eventually utilized for any validation authorization requirements. So I have the files and media section on the toolbar on the left. And let's say I have this SSN that I would like to upload to the app. This is a dummy SSN, and I would want to inject this image to the app. So, before even that, I just wanted to talk about how do you get new images out here. See, there are 5 different placeholders, and you can definitely upload an asset with the specific configurations that have been mentioned out here. It could be JPEG or PNG with a maximum file size of 10 MB. And you would there be, once you upload, you will be able to see all of those images out here. So at this point in time, I want to inject a SSN to the app. And you'll get a message on the right which says that asset injected successfully. At this point in time, if I go ahead and click on the camera, I should be able to see that the image that I had injected into the device is now, you are basically able to take a screenshot or a snapshot of that particular image. In some cases, we would also have, a case like an image of a user, right, that would basically be required for validating the user, right? Certain apps are okay with image of the user. Some certain apps would want to see the liveliness of the user, right? Like, let's say I'm blinking my eye and basically check all of those aspects also, right? All of those aspects are also supported, right? With a feature that is called as video injection. So you would be able to load a actual user, blinking your eye and all of that, so that you can basically test such use cases as well. But at this point in time, I'm considering a very simple use case wherein I would like to inject the user's face onto the front camera, right? And at this point in time, I just switched the camera as well. And the camera is right now open, and I inject this asset. It says asset injected successfully. And at this point in time, when I click on the button, I'm able to see that the relevant image got injected. So this is how I'm able to use, the functionalities around biometrics, camera injection. I also demonstrated a workflow that basically does the payments transaction using Apple Pay. With that, I'll proceed with the next part of the session. I hope these demos were definitely interesting. If there are any questions, again, I'd request you to put it in the Q&A box so that we can take it at the end of the session or answer it in real time. These are just sample recordings of the aspects that I have already shown live. So I'll skip these slides. All right, actually we are at Q&A. So at this point in time, I'll just see the Q&A on the screen, especially some of the open Q&A. So I think we have a question for you, Nagmani. Do you use the Appium framework, and which other frameworks do you recommend? And how does the framework assessment fit into the larger maturity model?
Yeah, so we use Appium. However, like what framework you should be using is totally depend on what kind of what kind of capability you have in house, what kind of technical expertise you have in house. There are many like people want to do, like developer want to do early automation during the development page, and they are using like MacBooks to develop their code and other things, and also they can go ahead and start using some of the framework that XUI tests are offering, or the Android is offering some the other frameworks. It all depends on you, like what you want. But from uh, from from a QA perspective, we are using like Appium, because it's like broad and it's like more or less very much similar like Selenium. So that's where we have.
Sure, thanks, Nagmani. I think there's a question around, the automation strategy that you covered, right? Does it also apply with respect to testing your applications on production environment?
So yeah, so I've seen that question, and thank you very much for that. Okay, so automation, you can use your automation in production, but when it comes to production, your data will change. You will be doing the things in the real time environment, and you may not have all the luxury that you have in QA environment. So you need to obviously the production one will be little lesser than what we have in the QA one. QA should be broad. We should not be doing a lot of testing in prod. If you're doing too much testing in prod, then that's a problem basically. So UAT should be mostly on focusing on your usability. Just make sure that application usable. Test the changes that you are that you are pushing to prod. Just make sure those are working, and a quick regression on the happy critical path scenario, I think, should be sufficient.
Sure. And just adding a little bit perspective from my side as well. In a lot of cases, when I've spoken to customers, and especially with respect to their strategy on testing on prod, a lot of them would primarily use that for some form of smoke testing, or user monitoring, or basically some type of monitoring of the application, right? Not a lot of extensive use cases on production. While there is also another set of users who would basically want to do a lot of shift left testing, and sometimes also do shift right testing. So it depends upon the nature of the application, the criticality of the aspects, especially given that we are discussing the banking and finance sector as a part of the session. Most of the customers would basically do a lot of shift left instead of shift right and test on prod. But
So
again,
so that's so adding to that answer. So that's where the mobile strategy comes very handy, right? When you have your user base, right? You know what kind of devices your users are using, right? What kind of pages they are hitting very often, or what kind of, like, what are your critical flows. All those details you will be able to get if you have right visibility from your production usage. And then when you have those visibility, you create your test, you execute that test in QA. Then obviously if you do a minimal small smoke testing in prod, that should be okay actually.
Sure. Nagmani, there's a question around, is automating CAPTCHA even a thing? If an app has one, is it turned off for automation?
Can you repeat the question again, please?
Automating of CAPTCHA.
CAPTCHA.
Yeah.
CAPTCHA devices. I have not automated that, but I think it's similar like image injection, right? Basically.
No, I think it's more about, I believe, to do with the CAPTCHA that comes up as a part of the application, so that any valid user is basically logging in, and there's not a lot of bots that are able to
Yeah.
throttle the application.
Yeah, but I personally I have not face, like my app does not have this feature, but I think this is interesting one.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I don't have a right answer at this point of time, actually.
Sure, and again, in my experience, the automation of captcha for applications that are in dev and QA, usually developer teams you would either turn that off or maybe set a static captcha code for just the dev and the QA environment so that the automation can basically proceed from there. So maybe what we would recommend as a best practice is to either turn off the captcha or set it to a static code by working with your development team, because I believe the functional use cases that you have around a lot of other aspects that you would like to test, I think they have far more prominence and importance to get covered, right, rather than working on the captcha piece. So that would be my recommendation. Moving on to the next question: can accessibility testing be done manually or needs automation on BrowserStack? I think I'll take that question, Nagmani. So there is a specific product of accessibility testing that we have launched that allows you to do accessibility testing using manual methods. There's an entire workflow scanner that basically, when you switch it on and perform your application testing workflow, and at the end of your workflow, you basically switch it off. You are able to get all of the accessibility issues right as a part of a report that we generate for you. Again, in case you'd like to fully automate this entire accessibility testing, your existing functional tests can be used to perform accessibility testing on BrowserStack. There is something called as the BrowserStack SDK. If you're already aware of it, what we do is we ask users to install the BrowserStack SDK, and there is a entire configuration wherein you would probably set those configurations true for accessibility equals to true, with a set of specific configurations around accessibility that you set. Once you do that one-time configuration for accessibility, your existing functional tests and the workflows that it covers, the journeys that it covers, right, can be repurposed and reutilized for accessibility testing as well. All right. I think there was a question around delving a little bit more on security testing. Nagmani, can you take that a little bit around the security testing strategy?
Yeah, so I think that's a whole another big topic basically. But right, like when you talk about the security testing, you talk about like static vulnerability and dynamic vulnerability, like all those, like you have top 10 vulnerability, like cross site injections, SQL injections, and other stuffs and all basically. So you need to ensure there are tooling around that, you can do that basically. But this is a big topic. Just like if you want to go detail, it will take a lot of time basically.
Sure. I think there's one use case, given that your team has used Appium, right? Doesn't Appium cause any lag on running UI tests on real devices? How is the performance overall?
For me, it's not. But like for me, I have not seen that because maybe because most of our traffic is coming from US. But if someone is having, then that's a, I think, like we like they can work with you all, I think, right, on that part. They
Sure.
they need to have a right strategy. They might be seeing like why that latency is coming. Is that because of Appium, or is because of the configuration they're having? So those kind of like due diligence they need to do.
Sure. I think there's a question on our experience on running Appium tests with mocked services, specifically if those services are on local environment. So I think I can take that up. These workflows also are supported if your application services, right, are behind a firewall or within the user's network. So be it mocked service, or let's say your entire application server is behind firewalls, you would be able to test that using Appium or any other framework that we support, right? The functionality is called as local testing or BrowserStack local testing. And with BrowserStack local testing, we are able to create a tunnel between the BrowserStack terminals or the devices and your user network, so that we are able to access the app servers, be it mock devices as well, right? I think there was another question around uh, do we support as BrowserStack OTP authentication flows? Of course, right. I think when I was sharing my screen, there was another aspect to the dashboard wherein you would see the devices with SIM and without SIM. So at this point in time, this entire functionality is in closed beta. But in case you have a requirement of SIM-based testing to, let's say, perform a workflow which uses, some form of an OTP for a payment or any other use case, right? You would be able to test that on BrowserStack as well. I think there was one more question in terms of Nagmani, how do we test or identify the right kind of devices or combinations of the devices to test on?
Yeah, so I have covered that's the main part of your strategy. What we are using, we have Google Analytics implemented in our application, so we get those kind of insights. But I'm sure every company will have some kind of tracking. So if so whoever has asked this question, they need to just work with their company analytics department, get those data for a couple of month production volumes, and see like what kind of devices they are using, from where they are logging, like from where they're logging means like whether it's United States or India, or like the geographic location, all those kind of like whatever the data they captured. I think they can use that, and if something is missing, they can put even request saying, hey, I want to create my mobile strategy more robust. Why don't you start capturing all these parameter as well? So they can start doing that. So like this mobile strategy is like you cannot create uh, in one go. You need to work with different teams. You need to get all those data. You need to make sure that you understand those data, discuss with product team, discuss with analytics team, get those data, and come up with a strategy.
Sure, sure. Thanks, Nagmani, for that elaborate answer. I think there was another question that reflected on very similar things. That is it the the role of a QA team or a marketing team to identify which devices would be really useful? I think you answered that as well. That usually there are these geolocation and APIs that allow an application to basically have all of those configured within the application itself. The developers configure it so that whichever location and region boundary are your users coming from, you have all of that analytics data in real time coming up on the services that are used for identifying these analytics, right? So
On roles one, it may be the marketing may be collecting those data,
hmm,
because for them they can target their promotion activity and other things and all, right? But we as a QA engineer, we also need to know like what we are like, where like who we are working for, like who is our end customers. So it's always better to get those data and analyze that.
sure. I think there's a very, there's a question on mobile native app and how do we automate the app. I think, team, there's a lot of documentation that you can get on BrowserStack. There is the docs section that provide you some sample apps and sample frameworks for each of the frameworks that we support on BrowserStack, and you'll get very step-by-step guidelines around how to go about automation of apps out there. um sure. So I think there's another question, Nagmani, around how do we monitor network traffic as a part of the testing, and is it something that your team has basically done in your experience?
Yeah, like there are multiple way. Again depends like where your application is hosted, right? If whether it's on-prem or cloud. If it is cloud, I think there are a lot of services in the cloud where you can go and watch your network traffic. If it is on-prem, even you can have a lot of tools like App Dynamics, Datadog. There are multiple tools that you can configure to get your network traffic and analyze that.
Sure. Thanks, Nagmani. I think we'll take a couple of more questions. Let me see if we get a few questions that are relevant for you. So how do we test for features that can access location in real time, right? Like let's say you are using Google Maps. I think I'll also get that answer from my side. So
You can
basically,
handle that.
PIM framework does support set location, and we also support the IP geolocation and GPS functionality as a part of our device cloud. So again, a combination of both, or just using the Appium set location can be really useful because that will also give you granular access to basically set the location at any given point in time during your app workflow or the user journey. Nagmani, would you want to add anything?
No, I think you perfectly kept. So I think you use this like whatever the service. Mostly, I'll use your service for that.
All right. All right. So I think most of the questions that I see are already answered. And I think, yeah, we'll take one more question, and before we, move to the next part, how can we minimize the cross-browser testing or cross-platform testing when a client has requested to test on 10 plus devices or browsers? I think this is one of the, common headaches that QA teams would face. Is there any right answer to it in your experience, Nagmani?
So generally, the industry practice you say is like you test the current version -2 basically,
Hmm,
right? Make sure that we definitely test that,
hmm,
right? And if you can cover that within 10 devices, I think that should be okay. Most probably it should be sufficient actually. Yeah. And then you just take a call, like it's all based like risk-based testing. You're saying, hey, it- our application may work on the version below that, but then we are not testing it basically. Our testing coverage only covers like current version -2.
yep. Interesting
Yeah.
perspective, Nagmani. Thank you so much for that, everyone, for attending and being an active participant in terms of the Q&A window. We hope you enjoyed the session, and thank you so much once again, Nagmani, for being with us and getting this session done. And I hope the audience has found a lot of value in terms of this masterclass, and looking forward for the next one. Thank you.
Thank you very much.